There's something about the quiet dawn that puts me at ease. Every day I'm out here tending to these horses. It might seem like a hard life to some, waking up before the sun, feeling the chill in the air as I muck out the stables. But there's purpose to this hard work. These horses depend on me. Each one has its own personality and its own needs. It's all about patience and understanding and providing the right environment for growth. The reward is in the bond you forge, the trust that they place in you. This is my getaway, where I can shake off life and just breathe easy. A patch of peace in the middle of life's storm. So as 2023 was coming to an end, early December, I had kind of realized that the year had flown by and all of the filming, all of the projects that I had done in the year was all just client work. And I hadn't done anything for me. I had posted a few YouTube videos and have never really been good at keeping up with it. So I apologize. I'm going to try and do better. But everything else that I did last year was for other people. And as a creative, I really felt the weight of that, of not just creating to create and to have fun and be like artistic and fulfilled in that way. And right around that same time, a good friend of mine who's a painter posted on his Instagram story of him taking care of his horse as well as some other horses. And it just looked beautiful. It was like crisp, cold morning with a little bit of fog, and, you know, it was cold, so the horse was breathing, and you could see like the fog coming out of its nose. And I was just in that moment had an epiphany of I need to figure out how to go and film my friend Dan with his horse, just because it looked so epic. And so I immediately messaged him, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm here every day. Come whenever you want. And so once the new year kind of came around, that first week in January, I was like, okay, when's a good day? He's like, how about tomorrow? All right, let's do it. And so I got there early in the morning. Of course, me being the great YouTuber, I don't have any BTS footage of this. So if you'll just imagine with me, we're at a pretty simple horse stable with some land and a pond. And Dan has got to go about his daily morning duties of feeding and taking care of his horse as well as some other horses on the property. So I told Dan going into this, I have no idea really what I want to do. All I want to do is follow you around and film some cool stuff. And I don't know what the end product of this video is going to be. And he was cool with that. We got going. I was just like, hey, you do your thing, and I don't want to hold you back. I'm just going to follow you and see what we can make happen. And so we had a really fun time. He was super awesome, just explaining all the details of things that he was doing, details of his saddle. And he said there's even like a specific order in which you feed the horses because they have their own hierarchy just in these 5 horses that were on this farm. So it was really cool to be kind of in that world, something that I haven't really been around at all. Okay. Well, I'm trying to record a video. Here, look right here. You see yourself? Say, hello.
Hi.
The joys and frustrations of filming with a toddler. Love that girl. So from a technical perspective, I filmed this all on the Sony FX6 with the Sigma Art 35 1.4 lens. And so that's all it was. I didn't have a zoom lens. I didn't change out lenses. I just wanted to keep it as like compact and minimal as I possibly could. I didn't even have like an external monitor. I just used the Sony monitor to try and keep it a little bit lighter and quicker run and gun. Another aspect of this being really fast paced and run and gun, and me just trying to keep up with Dan in his like daily chores was I didn't bring any lighting. Everything was 100% natural lighting. Now we were early in the morning, so it was like golden hour, which was amazing. And the one rule that I told myself was backlight everything. And thankfully that actually worked out really well. I never had to get into a situation where I had to stop Dan from doing his work and say, oh, actually, can you come over here? Can you stand right here and do this so I can get this shot? I really just kind of tried to move quickly around him already doing his work. And of course, there are some moments that I missed just because of the quick nature of it. And I wanted everything to be backlit. And there were even some moments where it wasn't backlit, but that moment captured was good enough and critical for kind of the storyline that it didn't matter. So once I like was able to come home, dump the footage, kind of briefly look through everything, I was pleasantly surprised that it actually looks good. I'm happy with what I was able to capture and how that one rule of backlight everything really turned out well and kind of gave me the mood that I was hoping for going into it. So for post-production, I am 100% in DaVinci Resolve, as well as I use Sony's Catalyst Browse to stabilize some of the footage, which is incredible. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but Catalyst Browse has been a dream to stabilize footage. So the first thing I did was just go through all of the footage and make basically a rough cut of the usable clip. So just cut everything down to what I thought possibly could work. And you can see here is all the footage. And then here in the front of the timeline was all the usable footage. And then from there, I cut it down even further into like, these are the A+ clips. From there, I knew like visually kind of the direction that it was leaning. And so I went and looked for some music. I actually used Artlist for this. Obviously, I'm not sponsored by Artlist because you can see I don't have many subscribers. So they're not trying to sponsor a Joe Blow like me. But I do enjoy Artlist. So I found a song, really enjoyed it, thought it fit. And then from there, was able to cut down to the rhythm of the song and kind of get a sense of like pacing and length of video. Now, this is not a long film. This is, I think, 1 minute and 14 seconds. So this is not a short film. This is a short film. But that's okay, because this is like the first one that I've ever done, honestly. Everything else up until this point has been just like testing or has been work for clients. So that's okay. It's like Colin and Samir say, just press publish. So I just wanted to get something out there, kind of a proof of concept, like a spec piece of this is what I could do for a client. That's really the hope of this, is not only to like fulfill me creatively, but to keep pushing business forward, to do things that I want to do more and more, instead of just the standard 2-camera interview for whatever business here locally. So once the music and the clips were kind of lined up, I really got a sense that I wanted this to be a little bit more than just like B-roll and music and to look pretty. And so I thought this would be really awesome to have some sort of epic voiceover to go along with it. I could even see this turning into like some sort of mini documentary about Dan specifically, about his painting and his horse caretaking. I think that there is a story there as well that could be a short documentary. So I kind of wanted to do a voiceover as a proof of concept. So I am not a good writer. I hate writing. The greatest thing that's happened to me in the last year is ChatGPT. So I just plugged in a prompt to ChatGPT, kind of explained the situation, explained Dan as the character, explained kind of the theme that I wanted to follow. And boom, it pumped out an awesome script. And I took that script and did some editing, tried to make it sound more simple. It kind of put out something that was really poetic, and I didn't think this needed to be super poetic. Like one of the things it said was, instead of saying horses, it said majestic beasts, and I just thought that was a little too pretentious, And so there's some things like that I simplified in the text. And I did a few more prompts to kind of hone it down some more. And then I was like, I gotta get this done. I gotta put it out, or it's just gonna sit on my hard drive forever. So I actually did the voiceover. I initially did the voiceover just as a proof of concept to send to Dan in hopes that he would be like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I'll do it. I asked him if he would do it, because it would kind of make more sense if he is the character on screen. He could be the character of the voice as well. It's him. And we went back and forth, explained it a little bit, and he just didn't feel up to it, which is totally fine. And so then I was like, well, I could, hire a voice actor off of Fiverr for $50 or whatever. And I just couldn't really find exactly what I wanted. And honestly, this is going to sound super arrogant. The more I listened to my voiceover, the more I liked it. And that's so weird to say because I hate the sound of my voice, just like everyone does. But I think it kind of fits. I don't know. I could be totally off base there, and you watching the film could say, man, that voiceover is trash. I sent it to Dan. He said the only change that he would make is remove one clip of him riding a horse, just because he said he and his horse just that morning were a little out of sync whenever they were going at a faster speed. So he's like, don't put that in there. I look bad. So I was like, yeah, that's great. I would have never known because I don't ride horses. So I took that one clip out and adjusted timeline a little bit, and we were good to go. Once I had the voiceover, I had the music, I knew I wanted to bring in some natural sound design back in as well. And you can see, the clip ends with this walking shot through. And so that sound of his horse walking through the stable right there, that was just the scratch mic on the FX6, nothing fancy. I think I may have compressed it a little bit, just like audio processing, but I don't think I didn't even EQ it. I just left it raw. I was like, I just got to get this done. I could turn into Perfectionist Paul, and then this would never be done. Same goes for here. The horse, when it, I don't even know the technical term for that, when it blows out its nose and whatever that sound is. The same thing. That's just the scratch mics on the FX6 while we're out in this field. And so I lined it back up with this slow motion footage. You can see this top line. This is the scratch audio from the FX6. Just to add some of those footsteps, some of the birds chirping, some of the, the hay hitting the fence as he throws it over. Even that's all like real audio on location from the scratch mics of the FX6, which is crazy. it goes to show you don't have to have like the most amazing stuff. Obviously, the FX6 is an expensive camera, but the microphones on that are not good, and it sounded good in this scenario. Here's some more up here. Yeah, just the horse eating, and then him walking up this path right here. You just get a little bit of those footsteps to go along. That's a super easy way to sound design. Now, I did add some other sound effects clips just to kind of have a consistent natural audio sound throughout. Here's one that's just kind of, it's just a wind noise in the background to kind of fill in the gaps. This is a one from Artlist as well that's just I think the name of the track was something horses on a farm. So you hear like a horse running by, you hear like some lassos going, fence clanking, birds and things like that. That's carried out throughout the whole track as well, just to add some little tiny details. And they're not loud, of course, but it just kind of made it all a little bit more cohesive and put you in that space. I knew that this was primarily going to be watched on cell phones on YouTube, where you are right now. And I love the 2-to-1 aspect ratio for smartphones because it specifically on iPhone, I'm not sure about Android devices, but it fills the majority of the phone to where it's, your front camera is not covering the screen. And so the way that I do that is in DaVinci, up at the top in timeline, you can do output blanking, which is just a really simple way to add the top and bottom black bars. So there is a 2, and these are all like the ratio of 1.33 to 1 or 2 to 1 or 2.4 to 1. So I use the 2 to 1, which gives the black bars on the top and bottom, just to give me an idea of the framing. And then when I export, you will turn the output blanking off. Well, got to do that from the edit page, I guess. So you'll turn the output blanking off. So reset, and you can see the bottom fills back up and the top is still black. That's just because I have shifted the Y axis. I've shifted the clip down on this one specifically, just for the framing purposes, to get more headroom on this specific clip. But when you are exporting, you will do in your resolution, I'm going to see, I'm just going to load up my last export. Yeah, so you'll use a custom resolution if it's 4K 3840 by 1920. So 1920 is half of 3840. That's where the 2-to-1 aspect ratio is. It is twice as wide as it is tall. And an important part of this is in your settings for cropping, let's see, image scaling, you're going to do center crop with no resizing on the output scaling. That will give you that correct output ratio of the 2-to-1. So let's talk about stabilizing some of these clips with Sony's Catalyst Browse, because I am a huge fan. So this is a free software from Sony. They have a paid, like, full NLE editing software, but I don't need it. It's a little too expensive. This program does exactly everything that I need, which is just stabilizing. The Sony FX6, as well as a few of their other cameras, like the A7S3, FX3, FX30, I think, maybe some other cameras, actually record the gyro data in the metadata of the file. you can see that here, there's a little icon in the top of the clip. That means that there is gyro data attached to this clip. So let me go back here and just find, I color coded some of these clips that I didn't slow down. Everything was shot in 60 frames per second, but I used these as real time. So let's see. Okay, these two are 1207. Let's just go to find 1207. Here it is, double click. It does kind of like a Rec 709 conversion for you in here, but you can export it still as S-Log3. So that's great. So when you're here, you can go down to Tools and you see Stabilize Clip. And it pops up. Left-hand side is not stabilized. Right-hand side is stabilized. It says Preview Not Analyzed. So you come down here and click Analyze. It's pretty fast. And then this is new in a recent update. On the bottom, you can see this stabilization graph of what it is actually doing. You can see these big peaks are some pretty heavy movement as me trying to walk and follow him. And then as we go down here, there's not much movement, so I'm holding the camera a little bit more steady. And this is really helpful because I could scrub through here and in my edit, I know, okay, I didn't use any of this stuff in the beginning. I only used this. So there is two stabilization modes, auto as well as manual. I've really enjoyed doing the manual mode because you can see right here, cropping amount. You can decide how much cropping you want based on this graph. So you can see when I move this cropping amount, you can see this blue dotted line move up and down. If I'm only going to use the clip from this point on, we can see this is the highest peak. This is the biggest motion. As long as I have this cropping amount just above that, it's going to stay really stable. Now for this section back here where you've got these gyro data points way above this cropping amount line, it's still going to be shaky. It's not going to perfectly fix those. So this is a really, really cool visual representation of what the gyro data is and how Sony is fixing it and how you can manually do it as well. Just in auto mode, it's doing the same thing. It says, okay, here's the highest peak. I'm going to put the cropping amount right on that highest peak so that everything is stable. So let's go back to manual. We'll trim this down, bring that line just above where we need it. And then from there, I'm still going to export the whole clip just so that I can line it back up in the editing software. And then from there, you would go up here to this little arrow, export. Okay, destination folder is in a different place. That's fine. We won't actually do it. But you can see here, you can change all your transcode settings. I basically have it set to default of like match the settings of the clip. So that's super handy. And this stabilization is so much better than what you would get in Resolve's actual just stabilized clip of like perspective or similarity mode, because it's using the gyro data of the camera instead of Resolve trying to look at the picture and figure out which way to compensate for movement. Now for color grading, I really wanted to go heavy artistic. So I've got a friend of mine based here locally who has been doing a lot of research into film print emulation. So he is taking actual film stocks and putting it through a specific algorithm to make his own print emulations. So his name is Eric, and his company that is doing this is called Emulsion Archive, and I'll put that up on the screen. He doesn't have a whole lot right now, but what he does have is super powerful. And so they're in LUT form. So this LUT is based on Kodak Vision CP2383, and it converts it into Rec 709 as well. Another part of this that is, in my opinion, like the secret sauce of his film emulation is a film matrix. Now I have his little README text document up here. He says this is a film matrix to get input colors into film negative adjacent color imagery. It is based on codec 500T 5219, and he says it's not a proper emulation. But visually, what I see this film matrix doing is giving you those deeper, richer colors that are not oversaturated that you see in film. Kind of that quintessential, like deep red that you see in actual film stock. And you can see that here whenever this is the film matrix. Whenever I disable that, it loses so much color and saturation as well. And it really just pops in conjunction with the 2383 LUT. Obviously, this is without the LUT or film matrix. I've got a super basic node tree. There are nodes that I'm not even using. These nodes aren't being used. I started out with a color space transform because his LUTs and the film matrix specifically, I had to transform S-Log3 into Arilog C3. That is what the film matrix is expecting to be receiving. So that was my first color space transform into the film matrix, then into the 2383 LUT. Then at the very end, I've got some of Resolve's film grain. Now, a lot of this is very, very minimal color grading. My first node is honestly just using the HDR wheels to adjust some highlights and global exposure. Now, one thing very important is to set your color space and gamma to whatever camera that you have. So my color space is the Sony S-Gamma3.Cine. The gamma is the Sony S-Log3. Now, Resolve is smart enough that whenever you set those specific settings, your HDR wheels act as if you are changing exposure in camera. It looks just like if you were to go up one stop on your global channel, it looks as if you, in camera while you were shooting, increased it by one stop. So I try to do all of my heavy exposure adjustments here in the HDR palette. As a whole, for the color grading, I really just kind of picked out one hero shot of Dan, color graded it, got it to where I liked it, and then just copied and pasted to all the other clips. Then I went back through and double checked, okay, is exposure good? That was really like the primary change that I made, because in camera, nothing changed. The main reason that I used the FX6 on this shoot instead of like my A7S3, that would have been a lot easier to run and gun with, was the FX6 has the built-in NDs. And so we were going from, you can see like right here, we're going from inside a stable that is not well lit to then we are outside in the daylight. So the only exposure adjustments that I'm making are with the internal ND. And I am pretty sure the whole time I was just wide open at f1.4 on the lens. So all of the color grading differences between each shot were only exposure changes to make them feel a little more cohesive and not have any drastic jumps between them. But I wanted a film look. I wanted it to be a little darker and moodier. I am not a professional colorist, but I'm happy with this. I know that there are some things that could be better. I know a professional colorist could probably destroy what I have done already, but I'm happy. Like I said before, this was just, I just had to press publish on something that was mine, that was strictly just for creative, artistic enjoyment. And I'm so happy. Like, this was a great experience, and I'm going to try and do so much more of this in this coming year. We're towards the end of January, so we've got 11 more months to go. I hope you do the same thing. I hope you take some time apart from client work to do something for you, to do it for an audience of just you. Of course, I did this just for me, and I'm releasing it now, so I hope you like it as well. But this was for me, and I'm happy. And that's all that matters. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.